pass it off. Reese. Oh, yeah!
And you can talk about the 7 that we won, but the 2 that haunt me are the 2 that we lost.
I love Marks.
You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Review. It's the Online Sports Guys College Football Podcast with us, featuring the Online Sports Guys, the whole team here this week, OSG Nelson, OSG J-Dub, John Wilkerson, and me, myself, and I, OSG Phil. Yes, I can account for a couple of personalities depending on the day and when you're talking.
That's true. Right there with you, brother.
That's a whole other subject.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been a couple weeks since we've been on the air, and I know we usually talk about college football, but it's kind of hard to avoid something that's happening this month and has been one hell of a fun ride to watch. And it is college sports related, so we'll go with that. The return of the NCAA basketball tournament.
I've heard of this.
Yeah. How much better is this tournament after a year off? Did you miss it? Did you realize how much you missed it until it was gone?
I didn't realize how much I missed it because last year it kind of up and went out of the door. Like they're getting ready to play the ACC tournament, and Swifer comes in and cancels the whole thing, and then next thing you know, that the March Madness goes away. And watching even these low tier games, the St. Bonaventures and the UNC Greensboros and the Liberties and the all these teams that I'm like, just play, just put the ball in somebody's hands, and it's been so incredible to watch and see these double-digit teams still dancing. I mean, it's been incredible to watch so far, at least for me. I think the games have been a blast.
I mean, for me, my bracket was toast at the end of the first weekend because I didn't have Abilene Christian. I didn't have North Texas.
Nope.
For the sake of sanity, I went with mainly a chalk bracket just because of, the whole notion that, you're going to have your power teams put together and its talent will win out eventually. And I'm one of those guys that will, when I fill out a bracket, I go from the middle out. I don't go from the outside in. And I start with my ending, and then that way I'm not second guessing myself as I'm trying to look at upsets and things. And that was how I ended up with a chalk bracket.
Just the book writer of the bunch.
Yeah. So that was what honestly, that was how it ended up doing what I've done so far. But yeah, I lose out on the upsets, but I end up with most of the folks there toward the end that we think are going to be there. And I know, Wilkie, for someone like you're sitting there and you're looking at your Razorbacks and our boy Emus, and as they're making their way deep into another run here in the tournament, it's been a fun watch to see what's going on.
Yeah, when they reached the Sweet 16, they were talking about it's been 25 years since the Razorbacks had gotten that far. And I was reminded, I was there in Atlanta when they played UMass at the Georgia Dome. And when Marcus Camby kind of took care of us. And I was trying to think of the two guards that were from Puerto Rico that Calipari had, who I can't think of their names right now, but they also rained down on Arkansas that day. And it's kind of cool to see the Hogs back in the Sweet 16. Now they're the Elite Eight after just getting by ORU, who those kids really played hard, but they just ran out of gas. And that buzzer beater would have gone in if he still had his legs. So it's wonderful. I talked about this on some of our earlier podcasts when we kind of ventured into college basketball a little bit, how I just couldn't watch the regular season games and even the conference tournaments because there's just no atmosphere, and it just didn't appeal to me at all. And I was really worried about the tournament. Yes, they were going to play it, but what was it going to look like? Was it going to be anything like it was in the previous years? And you know what? You did, and to J-Dub's point, you don't realize how much you miss something when you leave it. And I sat down and started watch one of the first round games, and I was back into it. I was so pleasantly surprised that they had some kind of atmosphere in the arenas, and the games have been excellent. and I was back in it, and the love came back for that sport. And yeah, it's been great to see the Abilene Christians of the world and the ORUs of the world get their moment in the sun. And I read something about Abilene Christian that went over Texas, made their athletic budget, because they got more money going into the round of 32, and you know what? They're going to reap those benefits, not only from the budgetary standpoint, but just the exposure alone, especially beating Texas, the in-state behemoth.
And you got to think about this, me being a Kansas guy now, and we won't talk about how we got shot out of the freaking barn. But, the lost Abilene Christian, basically Marquette's like, thank you, we'll take Shaka Smart. And that's exactly what happened, because he has not won a single game in the NCAA tournament as a coach at Texas. And the boosters there in Longhorn Nation didn't like that. So yeah, that lost Abilene Christian hurt.
Boosters there don't like anything.
No. Oh, Wilkie, the guys that you're trying to think of in that backcourt, Edgar Padilla and the pride of Boston, Mass, Carmelo Travieso.
Travieso, that's right. Padilla and Travieso. Thank you, John. I was racking my brain trying to think of that guard combo.
The beauty of search engines and that bastion of journalistic integrity, the Wikipedia.
I mean, that was a tournament where I actually stood next and had a brief conversation with Big John Thompson, because Georgetown was in that region and they played the game after ours. So I got to sit around and watch Allen Iverson and that crew advance on before we had to make the long drive back to Fayetteville. But those are the things that, and the NCAA tournament is the event that I covered the most. I've been to a few Final Fours, and it's always been my favorite one to cover. And now that I'm kind of on the outside looking in, I really don't miss going to them, but it was a fun ride while I was doing it.
It's still my favorite one to watch.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, and then the last tournament I covered, it was here in NC State, one of the first opening rounds of the tournament several years ago. It was Skip Prosser's last a chance in the dance with the Wake Forest before he passed away. So I hold that near and dear, because I had a chance to catch up with Skip before and no one knew that was going to happen. But it's still one of my near and dear moments from my sports coverage.
Yeah, Skip was a great guy. I miss him. He had a great sense of humor too.
It's always wonderful to me, because I contrast this with what college football's trying to do to kind of round down their season a little bit, and it just doesn't compare. I think the greatest thing to me about the college basketball, the NCAA tournament and March Madness, is the fact you don't really know who's going to be in it. I mean, this year we didn't have the North Carolinas and the Kentuckys playing in it, and Kansas wasn't the Kansas of the last 5 or 10 years.
Nope.
You didn't have Duke in it.
Duke wasn't in it. Yeah, that's right.
Not a single blue blood.
Are we just being sentimental by saying it's fun to see the little guy get a chance? Because really, this is the only opportunity the little guy does get a chance in major college sports.
I don't think you're being sentimental about it. I mean, it's something that we see this time every year. And I think that we get to see in the NCAA basketball tournament what we don't get to see most of the time in all of the other sports, where you do have the blue bloods make their way through, and they do make those appearances, and they're always going to be there at the end of the discussion.
We can always predict the 5 or 10 teams that are going to be competing for the college football playoffs, and I guarantee you, out of those 10 teams, 4 of them will be in it.
Yep.
And then you look at where we are here, J-Dub, and it's like you're looking at teams that are making deep runs. In Oregon State, obviously you're getting these double-digit seeds that are making their way in, and it's a part of the fun aspect of all of this. That while they're part of the lower end of a Power 5, they're still a 12, and they're working their way through it and all this kind of stuff.
And then you look at, we were talking about the little guy, right, getting the chance. You look at the teams that lost out this year's college football, right? You have Texas A&M that finished 5th in the nation, 9-1. They got screwed in the playoff. Oklahoma, Florida, Cincinnati, Oregon, Ohio State. All these teams that would have, if we had some kind of an extended bracket, would have had a chance other than the top 4. That you don't get the same level of parity in college football that you do in college basketball. I think that's why I love March Madness so much. And even though I'm a football player, you don't get that type of access as a team. You think about the undefeated Tulane team from years ago that got screwed. You got to think it's just It's just an incredible situation, and I think football just is missing the mark.
Well, we're comparing football to the basketball here, college football, college basketball, and Phil brought up the point that you got the same 5 teams. Well, the best program in college basketball right now resides in the West Coast Conference in Spokane, Washington, and they're known as Gonzaga. And they've been that way for 25 years. And so to me, that's the good thing about college basketball is, you've got your power conferences, but you got a team in Gonzaga that, and what do? They have veterans. They have seniors. And that's something in the Power 5 schools are missing is a lot of those guys are one and dones, or even with the blue blood programs. But, they can get their McDonald's All-Americans. Loyola Chicago is kind of following that formula of Gonzaga. Porter Mosier
is at Loyola with Mosier is you have a coach who learned from the Rick Majerus defensive tree. Yeah. And you get the same, when we talk about these kinds of trees in football, but when you have a team that is a veteran team in Loyola that does things well defensively and has the disciples like from a Rick Majerus coaching tree, that what you're going to get is tough defense. And the game where they ended up getting bumped out was a grinder, but that's what they've done to get to this point. That's just been their style. That's who they are stylistically. And you get to see all of these different styles work their way through because of all of the different games that are physically here as a part of a weekend.
And the other thing I was going to bring up too about the mid-majors along those lines was sometimes stars are born. Think of about 10 years ago when Steph Curry and Davidson made their Elite Eight run. Well, he became a star, and what has he done? Not only has he gone to the Warriors and won NBA titles, he's changed the game of basketball to now it's a 3-point perimeter game. It's taking it in, and if you got nothing inside, dishing it out and popping. And so he's had a huge influence, I think more so than LeBron James, in the way basketball is played. And where'd he come from? Davidson University. And when they made their Elite Eight run, that's when the seeds were sown.
And you can even think back to, was it Arizona State when Herb Sendek recruited a little-known guy by the name of James Harden. The smaller conferences out there. These stars and these mid-majors and lower tier Power 5 schools are be able to make their names for themselves.
It's not a mid-major.
Well, no, I was adding them with it. I wasn't saying they play like one.
They're creating a star.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you look at Gonzaga. You have Drew Timme. Drew Timme's one of my favorite players to watch in all of basketball.
Mustache.
He's an amazing guy now. You have Kispert. You have Jalen Suggs is an amazing guard as a freshman. And Mark Few has done such a great job with Gonzaga that, that team stays together. That core, that nucleus has gone through. Same with a team like Baylor. Baylor added the transfer of Maceo Teague, who I got to see play at UNC Asheville. And to me, they're the two teams that are going to be in the final game for me, championship game, Gonzaga and Baylor. I think it's going to be one Goliath versus Goliath game. I cannot wait to see it. Even though Kansas did take down Baylor once, I will take that. I will take that victory.
Baylor ain't getting by Arkansas.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
love you, John. Sorry.
We're going to get this kind of smack going here. What a surprise.
Yeah. Really, as the one of the bunch who grew up as a basketball player more so than a football player, that to me is always the beauty of the game is you don't have to have the most physically imposing team on the floor in order to win a basketball game. If you're able to execute a system and execute it well, or you have somebody like a Steph Curry who can go stand out there 30 feet away from the basket and just knock down shots like they're nothing. Yep. That's a great equalizer. And in football, you're looking at teams that you're looking at a certain group of teams that just pretty much buy all the recruits. You can't really do that in basketball because it doesn't take 11 guys on each side plus depth in order to win the games.
So what you're saying that a program school like an Alabama or these program schools have a leg up on basketball teams when it's not necessarily a program, it's more of a philosophy. You think that gives basketball a leg up on football? Is that what you're saying?
In some ways, yeah, it makes it more competitive. That's why you get your mid-major teams and your smaller schools that are able to compete with the big boys because they can execute. I mean, back when we were kids, that's when you had the Harvards and the Ivy League schools who could compete against the big schools, the Big East schools, because they ran their plays and they ran them with precision.
Well, and then you end up with like you get a Tom Brennan from Vermont, where you end up with guys like Taylor Coppenrath and TJ Sorrentine, where once again, if you've got that 1 point guard that is fearless, and then the post-up player in Coppenrath, I want to say Taylor was 6'8" when he played, 6'8", somewhere 6'8", 6'10". You had that inside-out game, but you ran Brennan's system in a hot run. And the girls are fans of Tom Brennan too, as we can.
Yes, they are apparently.
So, but I mean, it's all about systems. I think that when you're sitting there and you're not looking at a blue blood, if a system is implemented and you have the experienced players who've been there, they're not the one and done. They're not going to leave after their sophomore year. They're going to hang out for all 4 years and be there at the end of it all. You get experience as a part of it. Systems are a part of it. And that's when you see these 12s and 13s make their way through, because they've been through it all and they've been through it for 4 years.
Then let me ask you this question. Me being here in Durham with Duke in my backyard.
Sorry.
And you talk about systems, right? With Coach K. So many one and dones coming through Durham, year and gone. Same with Carolina, with Roy Williams. And you look at Kentucky with Calipari, same issues. But then you look at someone, and I just got to see them play for the first time this season, Pitino in Iona. How much do systems matter when you don't have a school that's recruit worthy? If that makes sense. Like Pitino and Iona, I'm not sure that his system will work the same there as it did with him in previous schools.
It comes down to execution. If you've got experienced guys who know what they're doing and have run those plays for a season or two and run it well, you have a chance in basketball. Football.
Yeah, Patino's system, I can see working in Iona because, he's got the New York City pipeline right there that he can get guys to come to New Rochelle, New York. The other is his game was always predicated by the 3-point shot, and you can find guys that can hit those shots. Now, can you hit them consistently? That's the other thing. And that's where I think where the NCAA tournament and the little guy comes into play here, because it's a guards game by the time you get to the tournament. It's all about whether you guys got ball handlers or shooters, and you need to have timely rebounds and you need to have depth. And that's the one thing I think the mid-major schools always, when they get to the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, they get a little better product that they're going up against, but they don't have the depth 1 through 12 to be able to get through. Because once a team gets in foul trouble, it's a hard hill to climb. And, I think that's the success of Gonzaga. And I think that's what we're seeing in the success with Loyola. They have a system, and they have players that fit into the system. And Mark Few is smart enough to find some really talented guys, especially internationally, that fit into his system. And Porter Mosier, he's lucky. He's got the Chicago pipeline that he can go to. And Loyola's got some tradition too. I mean, this is a program that won a national championship in '63. So they have a championship banner that he can sell, and albeit it's been 60 years ago, but still, it's a banner nonetheless.
And saying, and you talking about banners that teams that have never won one. One of the teams that I watched this year actually went up against my Jayhawks, and we barely squeaked away from the Eastern Washington. They're in Cheney, Washington. Tanner Groves. Tanner Groves was just one of these guys that's the inside out. He's making baskets inside, making baskets from the 3-point land. Same with Evan Mobley in USC. I think there's some players that really use this tournament to shine. Like we talked about earlier with Steph Curry, and I think That's different than football because there are a lot of people like the offensive line and defensive line, people who work and do the system that get overlooked. But when you got a guy like a Strother and Gonzaga, some of these shooting guards or point guards or even small forwards that run the system well, set that timely screen, do the pick and roll, do the backdoor cut. You need guys that execute. And like to Phil's point, if you execute, doesn't care what school you're at. If you have people that can make the points, execute the plays, and get stops on defense, you're going to be successful. You're going to have a shot on the court.
Well, here's another thought for you guys, and I'll let you bounce it around after I put it out there. In basketball, I really think you find guys that, because there's only 5 guys that can be on the court at one time, you don't necessarily have bunches of 5-star recruits going to the same school like you do in college football, because guys want an opportunity to play. If they're that high of a recruit, they want to go somewhere where they can get on the court. And if they can get on the court, their game's going to speak for themselves. Whereas in college football, you got guys that are 4- and 5-star recruits that are going to Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State that may never actually make it out onto the field.
And then that's when portaling happens.
Yep.
But the point being, it's more about, for basketball recruits, it's more about getting opportunities to play on a regular basis than being on that team that's got the big name and, well, we're going to be in the championship game every year.
Well,
2 words,
I think,
Justin Fields.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that you're seeing that in college football as well, where you're seeing.
But it's not in the same level at this point.
No. But I think, but what you're having is you're having coaches sitting there and selling the notion of playing now to players, as opposed to, do you want to be a 3rd or a 4th stringer at school X, or do you want to be a part of something and play now? And I think that what you're seeing is a lot of student athletes who want to play now, as opposed to, waiting their turn. And then you have places like Kentucky, and then you have the blue bloods that believe in the one and dones, where they're going to sit there and they're going to go, and they understand that dynamic. It's like, look, you're a 5-star. Let's get all these 5-star all-star teams together. You play for one, you're out the door. Calipari did that at Kentucky, and you saw what he was able to do there with the one and dones. But I do think that there is a pocket of all of this where people are going to sit there and they're going to be like, yeah, I want to play now versus, I want to sit at the end of a bench and wait my turn. I think that that's changed in the last decade.
I think in major college football, you have 5 conferences that matter. Let's face it. In college basketball, those 5 conferences are there, but then you got the Big East, which is a damn good league. You've got the American, which is it's a pretty good basketball league too. And then you got the West Coast, which I'm partial toward. I love watching the Gonzagas and the St. Mary's and the San Diego's play. And the Missouri Valley, which they have Final Four teams. I know Wichita State left the league, but Loyola got that far. And Wichita State, in my opinion, is suffering since leaving the Missouri Valley.
I think
so you've got some really good basketball leagues that get exposure. Sometimes national exposure. And I think you got some really good coaches in those leagues too. So yeah, the talent out there can be spread out a little wider to some of because those mid-major schools don't have a stigma attached to them. I should mention the A-10. That's another great basketball league. And then the other thing too, in football recruiting, once somebody makes a commitment, makes their oral commitment, it just seems like everybody is pouncing on them again, even harder.
That's when recruiting actually starts these days, is when you say you're first where you're going.
But in basketball, there seems to be, and I remember Nolan Richardson telling me this years ago, there's a gentleman's agreement among the coaches that once a guy commits, they leave him alone. They don't, because there's plenty of other talent that can be a 2-guard or play the 3 that they can pick from. So I think that's why you don't see the arguments and the of recruiting in college basketball. Now, it's probably a lot more shady than college football is. At least it has been, because people have gone to jail, and shoe executives have lost everything over it.
Yep.
But there is that aspect, they leave them alone.
Yeah, I think Mr. Nelson here has an appointment that he might need to keep here as we hit his time clock limit.
Yep.
So maybe,
but
maybe
no,
we
this
take,
one, and if you've heard in the background, I am, as we are taping this go around talking about the basketball tournament, I am in plus time in a hotel room in Birmingham, Alabama. So that's when the phone rings, that means that they're trying to figure out when you're leaving, and you tell them when you're leaving, you've told them when you're leaving, and they still want to find out when you're leaving. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, chomping at the bit to get your room. I think you got some soccer to go cover, don't you?
Yeah, Atlanta United with their last scrimmages before CONCACAF Champions League. It's 5 minutes away, so we'll go check that out. Hopefully it won't rain. I bought my $5 poncho from the Walmart in Pell City, Alabama yesterday since I forgot to pack one. So
plastic kitchen bag.
That is true. So yeah, so we got these on today. We're not wearing the loafers because we don't know what the environment's going to be like at BBVA Field, but it's a great little venue in the USL Championship for Birmingham Legion. So we're going to catch up with Birmingham Legion, Atlanta United, and gentlemen, enjoy your discussion. It's fun to see all of you. Love you very much, and we will catch up next week or next time.
John, we'll catch you in the next episode. And I'll throw it here to halftime. When we come back in the second half of the show, Brother J-Dub and Mr. Wilkerson and I will continue the conversation about basketball. Got a couple of college football items I want to touch on really quick, too, before we wrap up, because, quite honestly, there's college football games going on right now, and some of them are pretty interesting. All that and more when we return with the second half of the review. You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
And Johnson will let it fly. He's got plenty of distance. It's up in the air.
Thanks for sticking around, folks. You have made it to the second half of the review. It's the Online Sports Guys College Football, and in this case, college basketball show, where we talk about everything going on in the great, big, wide, wonderful world of college sports. Joining me for the second half of the show, OSG J-Dub, John Wilkerson, me, OSG Phil, them, the dueling J-Dubs, and
we're back.
Brother Nelson had to disappear and go do work stuff here for the second half of the show. But in the first half of the show, if you were listening in, we talked a lot about the NCAA basketball tournament, and just a couple of notes we wanted to touch on here because it's college basketball. And J-Dub mentioned this, I think, briefly. Texas, on the heels of the Texas Longhorns losing to in-state little brother Abilene Christian, they are now looking for a college basketball coach because Shaka Smart has packed up and taking his talents to Marquette University.
Yep, because Marquette told Steve Wojciechowski to hit the road, and they're like, "We'll take Shaka, sure." So went from Wojo to Shaka.
It's kind of interesting, though, Wilkie. I mean, we talked in the first half a lot about the smaller schools with the bigger reputations, and Marquette is a kind of a legacy school, if you will, dating all the way back to the days of Al McGuire, where they had some serious talent come in, and excuse me, won some championships back, I believe, in the late 70s.
Yeah. And Marquette's got a great following. I mean, every time they play at whatever the arena they call it now in Milwaukee, where the Bucks play, they probably have the same amount of fans. Well, they do have the same amount of fans that the Bucks have. So they have a great following in Marquette. It's a plum job in college basketball. You're in the Big East, which is a plum conference. Great move by Shaka Smart. Texas, I never thought that was a really good fit at all. Texas and Shaka Smart. And I know that the Great White Fathers of Texas are probably looking toward north and to Lubbock to see if they can pry Chris Beard away from the Red Raiders. And if I'm Chris Beard, I got a good thing going in Lubbock. And although it is the end of the earth, I would probably rather stay in Lubbock than go to Austin and get part of that mess. I think they've got a new arena as well in Austin. And I think they're going to want to make some kind of big splash hire. I don't know who that would be because it's just, Rick Barnes did his best job as anybody could do there, in my opinion. Yep. And I've followed Texas basketball since their Southwest Conference days. Abe Lemons was the perfect guy to be Texas's head coach, and he had some success, and they've never been able to follow that. And I thought Rick Barnes did the best job you could possibly do in Austin, and they still ran him out. So you just got to understand the football school, and that Sark's going to get everything. The other interesting opening for me, Phil, is Indiana.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring that up.
And, I keep hearing that, Bill Musselman is in their crosshairs.
Eric
and
Musselman.
I think, Eric Musselman. And Bill's the dad. Sorry. Eric Musselman is in the crosshairs. And, why would he leave Arkansas? I mean, and I think Indiana, while it's up on par with Carolina and Duke and Kentucky as far as college basketball jobs. I just think it's a very difficult job right now. Ran Archie Miller off.
Yep.
I thought that was a good hire for them. So I'm not sure where they're going to pluck their candidates from. So I think the Indiana job is going to be the one that's going to be interesting to watch.
Now, you're talking about the arena earlier, Wilkie, for Marquette. It's the Fiserv Forum, I think that's what they call it now. But one of the coaches I think is in a similar situation as Shaka, except that he's actually got an NCAA win. Nate Oates at Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama is a football school. No pun intended. Nick Saban's going to get everything coming through there. Nate had a good year. I think he might be ripe for the poaching to one of these programs. But I agree. I think Texas and Illinois both are great jobs, but it'll be difficult to find that splash hire that's going to be going into there and have any success since they've ran just about every coach they've had off.
See, I look at a guy like Nate Oates, and I think he's in a perfect situation in Alabama. And the reason why I say that is because the SEC has made a very big attempt to be relevant in men's basketball. Mm-hmm. And Alabama, it's the cathedral of college football. Let's put it simply there.
Basketball team too.
Yeah, they've got, and look, Coleman Coliseum. That's a great facility, and they're spending money into men's basketball. Yep. And also, as long as Nick Saban's there and football is doing what they can do, he can hover under the radar and put in some great years. Now, I'll tell you this, Nick Saban wants a guy like Nate Oates there because when he brings football recruits in and that basketball team's as good as the football team, that sells those 5-star recruits even more. Yep. And so Nick Saban benefits from that success from Nate Oates. So if I'm Nate Oates, I don't think Indiana is where I'd want to leave for.
I don't even think that's a possibility, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yep.
Oates if my memory serves, I believe Oates signed an extension this year, first of all. Yep. And second, I'm not so sure that Indiana is a better job. Legacy, yes. Recent success, not so much.
Then you look at coaches like, I'm a Big South guy. I work for Campbell. one of the hottest coaches that has had to turn down jobs every year is Winthrop's Pat Kelsey. I think Pat Kelsey is a fantastic coach. He gets the most out of his players in Rock Hill. And, like I said, he's turned down a job every year the last 2 years to stay at Winthrop. So is he someone, or maybe someone like a Will Wade who's gone through some problems at LSU? Do you think someone would take a flyer on him? Because I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole.
No, that ain't happening.
I don't think Indiana would either.
Wade, he ends up getting fired at LSU and is untouchable at that point in time because of all the pending litigation involved with them.
And of course, Oklahoma's got an opening too. Lon Kruger retired.
Yeah.
And OU's not a bad basketball school. I go back to Wyndham Tisdale and they've always been in the hunt of
Blaylock.
What's that?
Mookie Blaylock.
Stacey King. Billy Tubbs is one of my all-time favorite coaches too. The Jack Nicholson sound alike.
In some ways,
with some really bad plaid jackets too. You thought Wim Sanderson had some bad ones. Check out Billy Tubbs circa 1985.
Let's not.
Yeah, exactly.
I still have scars.
Exactly. But I think it'll be interesting to see who OU gets. I'm sure that they'll inquire about some Missouri Valley coaches that are out there that have had some success. But that'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I want to jump off the college basketball wagon here a little bit.
Talk football? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, since we are technically a football show, we should at least mention some of it. And I can make the awkward transition here because it's still a coaching related subject. And over this past weekend, college football lost one of their living legends in Howard Schnellenberger. And for those of you unfamiliar, he was the guy who really kicked off my University of Miami's days as a national power. He spent time coaching at Louisville, Florida Atlantic. Basically, is almost everything in the place is named after him.
And I didn't realize he spent a season and a half as a head coach of the Baltimore Colts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was even further back than that. He was on the staff of the Miami Dolphins back in their days. Yeah. They went 17-0. I mean,
yeah, he was the architect. He was the architect of the U, and a fantastic man. I met him once decades ago. Knew he's forgotten more about football, or had forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. Almost like your Irk Russell there in Georgia Southern. But, it's like, when I saw that, one of my friends is a huge Hurricanes fan and posted a whole bunch of RIPs for the coach. And it was sad to see, but man, he left such a legacy in college football.
I did a live shot with Howard Schnellenberger at a booster event in Sallisaw, Oklahoma. His one and only year he was the head coach of OU. And I just remember, was a classy, nice guy, but whatever was in his pipe, man, did it have a pungent smell to it.
Yep.
He treated me, classy guy, had a little bit of a good football conversation with him. I was with him and a former Oklahoma quarterback by the name of Steve Davis, who used to do TV work. Just a really classy guy. And you think about his career, this is a guy who played for Bear Bryant at Kentucky, coached with Bear in Alabama, and he was the reason why Joe Namath went to Alabama. He's one that babysat Joe Namath to get him to come to Tuscaloosa. And then what you touched on, Phil, the fact that he's the architect of that Miami program. And you being from South Florida, you probably know, Phil, that was a program that was about to go under when he took over. People are going, why the hell are you going to Miami? Well, I see potential there. I can't do this voice justice.
In the mid 70s, they were almost a non-sport.
Yeah. Yep. And there was potential there. And he drew the boundary of South Florida and had those kids stay home. And now the rest is history.
Yeah, what surprised me when I was reading a little bit about him yesterday is he's not in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's a shocker to me.
I think he will be now, probably posthumously.
Yeah,
It's too bad.
Certainly, at the very least, he had a Hall of Fame mustache.
Yes, he did. and the fact that he had won a national championship at 83, he won a Sun Belt championship in 2007. He was 6-0 in bowl games. I mean, dude deserves a spot in the Hall. He deserves.
Well, think of the program he built in Louisville. People think it's Bobby Petrino. No, that was Howard Schnellenberger that built that, put the paddles to that program and resurrected it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they have that nice stadium in Louisville now. It was because of Howard Schnellenberger, and that's where he's from. He's from the Kentucky area.
What were the other college football things we were going to talk about?
Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah. And
I was going to mention about what the new sheriff in Lawrence, how the highest.
As KU grad student, please give us the latest comings and goings in America's worst Division I college football school.
Hey, I got to do something, right? Because we're not playing basketball anymore. But I did see this week that the highest recruit that Kansas, and this is not saying a whole lot, the highest recruit Kansas has ever recruited into Lawrence, Quay Davis, is a 4-star. Recruited by the Mad Hatter. Before he got his unceremonious exit from Lawrence. And he had a pretty questionable past, Quay did. And Emmett Jones, the interim head coach, was like, you know what? You're not the kind of caliber player we have here. I don't care if you're the best thing we've ever recruited. You're not coming to Lawrence. And that says something for a team who is as awful as the Jayhawks are, took a player that could do something, could help them out in a position and a really select skill position. And said, nope, hit the road, go find somewhere else. And I thought that was a good turn for a really bad team. Maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, you don't see most college programs who are suffering cut ties with a 4, almost 5-star recruit because of their background. So I thought that was, hey, there's something. Maybe there's life in Lawrence. One can hope.
Remains to be seen. Look, you haven't really heard any chatter about anybody even really interested in the jobs there.
Nope.
I think they got to get an athletic director first before, because I don't think the interim athletic director has any kind of authority to hire a new football coach. And I definitely don't want the president of the university with that kind of responsibility. But J-Dub, something I wanted to get your take on with KU, because last time we convened, we talked about, is the program salvageable and will they ever be anything? And you don't think so.
Well, maybe.
I had a difference of opinion on that.
They have good bones. They're like that fixer-upper house that's got good bones that really need a lot of work. I think they can be saved. I think they need the right direction in Lawrence. I think they need someone that does it the right way and does it, the way that it's better to lose the right way than to win the wrong way, so to speak. So I think that Lawrence has some pieces. They just need to learn how to win. Mm. And I think that maybe if they get a really good athletic director, someone that is really good, I think they might. It might take a decade, but I think that I think they're a really good school and a really good conference. I think the Big 12 is a really good conference overall, and I think that. Like I said, my heart wants, I'm a Tennessee fan too, and seeing what Josh Heupel's already done in Knoxville, the difference in tone and tenor, and they released the first video from spring practice this week, and it just feels different. Each year gets, it was different under Pruitt after Butch Jones. Now it's different now under Heupel. I think the right coach and the right AD could turn that program around. It just won't be done in a day, in my opinion.
Well, it's going to take it's going to have to be a visionary on the AD end and on the college football head coaching end, and to realize that you're kind of limited in state about what you can bring in to Lawrence and what you can pluck out of Kansas City as well. And someone that can go to Tulsa and go to Dallas and can go to New Orleans and Louisiana and bring those guys up to Lawrence, Kansas. But look, I think hopefully this is rock bottom for them. We've said this before with them. We thought it got kind of low a few years ago. Boy, were we wrong. But
we had Jeff Long was our AD. Jeff Long is an idiot. I will go on the record and say Jeff Long is an idiot.
Already
One of the worst. one of the worst ADs we could have possibly had in Kansas. And the hire of Les Miles was awful.
Now.
So, I mean, he's an idiot. And I think that the first change is going to be like, at Tennessee, get a good athletic director, get that visionary, like you said, Wilkie, then that will possibly turn that program around. Trust me, I'd rather it be sooner rather than later because, I hate pulling. I mean, every single one of my teams I pull for suck. So I just want one of my teams to be good. So at least one of these days I can say, hey, I'm a Kansas football fan and not be laughed out of the building.
Yeah, it goes back to that old adage, the best run businesses are run by the best people, and the worst run businesses are usually run by the worst people.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason that that's true. Guys, one more thing here before we wrap up here on the show. For those of you at home, either watching or listening, I don't know if you even know about this because the football subdivision is playing college football right now, even as we speak.
Yep.
And one of the best finishes that I think I've seen in some time happened this past Saturday at the Northern Arizona Weber State game with roughly 0 seconds on the clock. Weber State with the ball some 50-plus yards away from the end zone and down by 5 points.
And Johnson will let it fly. He's got plenty of distance. It's up in the air. He got it! Unbelievable!
How did he catch that?
The thing, I mean, you look at someone who played football, right? And I've been an offensive lineman blocking for these types of things before. Dude, Randall Johnson threw that ball from like the 42-yard line into a sea of white jerseys. I don't know how. That's like, you can't really practice that. How did he come down with that football? I don't know, but it's one of the best plays I've seen all year.
First thing I thought of is I spent 3 years in Flagstaff, Arizona at the NBC affiliate there covering NAU. And I traveled with him one year. One of my trips was to Ogden, Utah. And first of all, the first thing I was watching that, he goes, hey, they got turf there. Back then they had a field that Steve Axman, the head coach of NAU at the time, called it kitty litter. And I remember he and Weber State head coach Dave Arslanian almost coming to blows at halftime. I don't remember what it was, but I mean, it was pretty comical to see these guys, getting ready to duke it out. They had to be separated. So that's what flooded my memory as I was watching NAU and Weber State on this remarkable Hail Mary. And I having been around that football program, NAU's for 3 years, it's just typical of I mean, it's what happens to them. I mean, they had great talent when I was there for an FCS school, but they always go 5-6 and 6-5 because they didn't care.
And this prevent defense.
So it's kind of indicative of the checkered past of that football program. But I'm like you, J-Dub. How the heck did that ball get through the sea of white jerseys? How did that not get knocked down? How did it just find that little space in between that receiver's arms and he comes down with it for the touchdown?
It looked like every single person that dressed out for Northern Arizona was in the end zone.
And
the other guy,
including the trainer.
And all I can think of, and this is my playing days because my teams sucked that I played on. But I'm like, okay, that happened. We ended the game that way with a loss. I'm running my butt off for the next week because they're going to be extras after practice every week. And I bet you money that we're going to run till we puke every day because that loss should not have happened. You think in that averages, there were twice as many NAU jerseys there than there were Weber State jerseys. Somebody should have knocked it down. And it's like, the old adage, don't do whatever you got to do not let it get in their hands. And they epically failed.
I don't know about you, but if I'm on the field, if I'm playing for Weber State and I see that happen, I'm walking off the field just laughing.
Absolutely.
There is no other way to react to that but just laugh.
Now, as someone, when I got to watch the Hobbs nail boot against Georgia, Josh Dobbs throwing that Hail Mary against Georgia, that was great. And like I say, as a fan, and been on the other side of that same thing, it's a cavalcade of emotions, right? You're screaming happy, and then you're like, what the heck happened? It's one of these things where Hail Marys are designed not to succeed because if you think about the numbers, they should not ever succeed. Right. But when they do, it's just, what are you going to say? Sometimes you just have to tip your hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, what do you say we wrap it up here on this episode of the review? We've talked long enough, taking too much of our time, your time, everybody's time. Time is a ticking. Time is everlasting.
I'm sitting there trying to think of song lyrics with time, and I'm like, I can't come up with anything.
By the way, J-Dub, I'm enjoying you in the Washington football team regalia that you're wearing.
Yeah, and just as you know, I won season tickets this year, so I'm trying to play the part. So I'm having fun.
So, stupid question while we're still on the record. If you won season tickets and live in North Carolina, how the heck are you going to go to the games?
It's only 5. It's closer to Atlanta for me.
Well,
so,
yeah,
I mean,
I can northern North Carolina.
Exactly. So it's only a 5-hour trip. It's worth
it.
Daniel Snyder thanks you.
Yes, he does. Thanks me with my free tickets. I appreciate
it. Daniel Snyder and his concubine.
Too true. Too soon.
Yes. And I hear that you guys are going to be, it's a good chance you're going to end up being the WFT for years to come.
Yep. And I know this is kind of pro sports. I'll finish with this. I kind of like it being the WFT because it allows us to have all our history and not have to be like the Washington Goonies where we have to change like mascots and new history. It allows us to keep the team that will not be named's history and embrace it. The only thing that they cannot do is change the burgundy and gold. Cannot. The whole world will revolt if they change the burgundy and gold. But that's just me. Plus, I just painted my office burgundy and gold. You'll see that next show.
And thankfully, the T and the F are where they are, because then we'd be WFT, or you'd be with the WTF.
That's what we've been the last 10 years. So I'm used to being the WTF.
Saying, what the bleep?
Exactly.
Yeah, but the Cowboy football team rivalry just doesn't have the same juice as a Cowboys-Redskins.
But that's later.
On that note, I think it's time to say goodbye, guys, because we're running out of things to talk about. Thanks for joining us this week, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in on YouTube if you're watching us at home, or on Spreaker, or on the OSG Sports phone app.
Anywhere.
Where you can find us for free. Anywhere you're listening or watching, or however you're taking in the conversation, we appreciate it. We're grateful. Thank you very much. For OSG J-Dub, for John Wilkerson, I am Phil Cantor. We are the Online Sports Guys. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will join you again soon. Have a great next week or two. Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Review. You can find this and past shows by downloading the OSG Sports app on your mobile device. And enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.